السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه دعوة التامة والصلاة
الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله إلى كافة للناس بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين وصلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وصحابته الغر الميامين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. وقال تبارك وتعالى: يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: ما نقص مال من صدقة، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. أما بعد, my dear respected brothers, as we have gathered upon this blessed day of Yawm al-Jumu'ah, and alhamdulillah it is also a day where even the weather is very cold, and also that we have the rain coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rain is also a sign of mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described a certain type of people in the Quran, who are those people whom He also loves because of what they do. And the deed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing is actually the deed of spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this doesn't mean that this khutbah per se is a fundraiser or something like that, but just to understand the common notion regarding why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who spend money in His path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has also mentioned in different places in the Quran that infaq fi sabilillah, spending in the path of Allah. And a very great example comes actually in Surah Al-Baqarah in verse 254, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خُلَّةٌ وَلَا شَفَاعَةٌ وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. That, O you who believe, spend from what we have given you, spend from the provision that we have given to you. مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ, before a day comes to you, where يَوْمٌ لَا بَيْعٌ, there's not going to be any type of business transaction, and وَلَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خُلَّةٌ وَلَا شَفَاعَةٌ, There will be no companionship or no friendship that will benefit you on that day, and there will be no intercession on that day either. وَالْكَافِرُونَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, and essentially the people who do not believe are the wrongdoers, and they are oppressing their own selves. My dear respected brothers in Islam, the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning about this, and also He has mentioned about this in several other places in the Quran, is to let us understand and let the reality sink in that the money that we earn in this world is actually not ours. It is ours in a way that, yes, we do earn money through either a business or through working. We do have that money and we spend it on our family and also on other things. But who is the provider of that money? Who is the one who allowed you to do some type of work, or maybe to sell some product, or basically engage in some type of business that is allowing you to make some money and earn a living and help out your family and also take care of their needs and necessities? That is Ar-Razzaq. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who is Ar-Razzaq, the provider. He is the giver. He's also the sustainer. And these things, when we think about it in a positive manner, and also when we're thinking about it, that it is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is actually taking care of all of our affairs. Yes, there are different vehicles that He uses, there are different aspects, or there are different things necessarily that He uses that actually allow us to be able to get to that point in our life. But the main reason why we should be spending in the path of Allah is that even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Tawbah that إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purchased, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, from the believers, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ, that He's actually purchased the believers themselves and also their wealth. بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has purchased ourselves and also our money in exchange for Jannah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is explicitly guaranteeing, He is promising, He is making a promise in a way that basically if you're spending your money and if you're basically also giving some time of your own towards the religion, towards doing anything khair or any good of the deen, then that is actually going to allow you to get into Jannah. بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. And even also in another portion of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He recalls an incident which takes place in the city of Medina, where the Jews over there in Medina, they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were essentially mocking him and telling him that, oh, what kind of a Lord do you believe in? That you're asking the people to spend in the path of God, but this God, he needs money, like essentially he is poor. Astaghfirullah, na'udhu billah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in Surah Al-Imran His response, and He said, لَقَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَقِيرٌ وَنَحْنُ أَغْنِيَاءٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has heard from these people that they have said that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is poor and we are rich. سَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَالُوا وَقَتْلَهُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ. And so then we had actually written to them that they were the ones who actually killed the believers actually they killed the prophets, وَقَتْلَهُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ, the prophets of Bani Israel, وَقَتْلَهُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ. سَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَالُوا وَقَتْلَهُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءُ. So that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. And in Surah Fatir, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very beautifully mentions that يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ, O mankind, أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. You are the people who are poor towards Allah. وَاللَّهُ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is all rich and He is also the one who is also praised. A very beautiful hadith that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has narrated and told us that مَا نَقَصَ مَالٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ, that whatever you give in sadaqah towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will never ever hurt you in your life. And we have, many people, they have actually seen this, and there's also a very small incident. And there was one person, he was having some financial trouble in his life, and so he came to a very respected scholar, and he asked him that, I'm going through some financial hardship, and especially nowadays with inflation, almost even more than 7%, basically, things are getting very hard. And so that scholar, what he told him was that why don't you just give some money in the path of Allah, spend some money. And again, when we talk about the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this means that there are different ways to spend that money. You can either give it to a local masjid, you can give it to an Islamic organization, you can give it to something or some type of organization or masjid or Islamic center that you trust yourself. This doesn't mean that if someone just walks in and asks for money, you can just give it to him. It is your right that you can verify that, whether it is this place or is this organization a legitimate organization or not. But at the end of the day, it is also obviously the money of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we should spend it wisely and also make a rational, make a well-mannered decision and also a well-informed decision. So the scholar tells this man that why don't you spend some money in the path of Allah? So he does that. And so later after that, a couple of months later, he comes back to that same scholar and he actually tells him that since that day that I started giving some money in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I cannot even imagine from where different places this money is coming to me, and also that my own expenses, they have become cheaper for me. For example, if before his expenses were probably $5,000 and his own income was probably just $4,000 a month, now he's still earning the $4,000, but his expenses are only $3,000. So he's actually saving money as well. That $1,000 is being saved for him, and he can also do other things with that money. So my dear respected brothers in Islam, this is the true essence that sometimes, even I sometimes, you tend to forget it because of the worldly life that we're living in this world, and especially with this hyper-materialized society that we live in which they are essentially telling you that buy now, pay later. And they actually, at the end, they actually are offering you different types of credit cards that you can just pay it, over the course of a year, over the course of 2 years, 3 years. And this is their own tactic. They want you to get into that so that you can forget about making the payments, and then it just goes on to incur all of that interest. And so therefore, my dear respected brothers in Islam, the reason why I'm also talking about spending in the path of Allah is because one of the most important questions on the Day of Judgment after Salah, obviously the first question on the Day of Judgment is, did you pray or not? That's the first question that's going to be asked by each and every one of us on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. But after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask about our youth, that how and when and in what activities did we spend our youth life when we were in the dunya. And the third main question of that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask that where did you earn your money from, and how did you earn it, and then where did you spend it? My dear respected brothers in Islam, this is a very, very, very important question that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask. That where did you earn the money, how did you earn it, and then where did you spend it? The reason why it is an important question is because the aspect of money is also very important, and also the aspect of earning halal and eating halal. In a very famous narration, our Prophet ﷺ, he said that a person who actually earns haram and he also buys something haram and he consumes that and gives it to his family, then his supplication, his dua, is actually not accepted for at least 40 days. So, my dear respected brothers in Islam, we need to emphasize that when we are earning money, we're earning it in a halal way. Now, this doesn't mean that we go about basically looking around our different aspects of our employment, but the main thing to realize here is that when you are at work, then you should not be violating their own terms and conditions, and when you should be working at that time. Because these types of things, and especially those people who have their logs or their time sheets or something like that, if they are cheating in that, if they're putting in more hours and they're actually literally working for less hours just to earn more money, then this will also be questioned on the Day of Judgment. So my dear respected brothers in Islam, another very important aspect to talk about is that our Prophet ﷺ, he has mentioned to us that in Islam, jealousy is forbidden. But there only comes very few certain times or aspects where jealousy is actually called ghibta. And what this is is actually that if there is a person who recites the Quran day and night, and he's reciting it very fluently and eloquently, then obviously a person can be jealous of that person. The second type is a person who is actually financially very stable, and he spends in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day in and day out. The reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the reason why our Prophet ﷺ actually has talked about these two types of people is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves these types of people. Because in one aspect, they're reading the Quran day in and day out in a very eloquent and also in a very fluent voice. And in the second aspect, what's happening is this person, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him a lot of wealth, a lot of money, and he is spending it in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not like the stingy and miserly type of people, and who basically are like misers and they just want to keep on saving money. There are many different types of people in this world, and especially if you look at those who are on their path or who are actually millionaires and billionaires, you will actually find them to be the most stingy people on this planet, if not the most stingy people. And because they think that we should just keep on saving money for retirement and live a nice lavish retirement life when we get to that age. But this is the real test that we have in this life, that we don't know when we're going to die. Because obviously if you're just saving for retirement, but let's say if you die at 50, then all of that money is pretty much going to be gone for an inheritance for your children. Which is good, alhamdulillah, but the goal of that person was to enjoy his life after retirement, after 65 or maybe 70. But he died at 50, so basically his goal is gone. This is why we also need to emphasize that we're living in the present. Yes, obviously you should try your best to plan for the future, but live in a moderate position, live in a moderate way, that you're not basically becoming too much extreme of saving money, and you're also not becoming too much extreme on the side of spending money, that essentially you're taking out loans and paying off different types of credit cards with those loans. So therefore, my dear respected brothers in Islam, this concept of spending money overall is a very important concept in Islam. And even our Prophet ﷺ teaches us through his life that we should spend it in a moderate way and live a decent and balanced life. Because these things will allow us to become a moderate Muslim and to be able to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Because if we don't follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we become towards in those extremes, then our Prophet ﷺ is actually mentioned in a narration in a hadith that halaka al-mutashaddidun, that may the extremist person perish, because Islam does not allow extremism. We are rather a rational religion with basically common values and all that stuff, but we don't entertain or we don't allow any type of extremism. And so that is why our Prophet ﷺ, he has actually said this hadith to allow us to understand that this religion is a beautiful religion. This religion is not just a religion, rather it is actually a way of life, because it is teaching us every single aspect of our life and how we should be doing it. For example, when we're waking up, there's a dua. When we're leaving our house, there is a dua. When we're sitting in our car to go for work or to the masjid, there is a dua. So in every single aspect in our life, there is a dua. And this actually allows us to be in the constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, that those people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hearts are actually tranquil, their hearts are actually at peace when they are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ, that will you not find peace and solace and tranquility in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is actually a true fact, that different people, especially those people who are going through depression and stress and anxiety, that when they just read the Quran for probably 5 minutes, or maybe even 10 minutes, then after that they're at peace, they're relaxed and basically not worrying about whatever the things that are worrying in their life. So therefore, my dear respected brothers in Islam, we need to realize that if bad things happen in our life, then it is not the end of the world. Because we all have our good days, and we also all of us have our bad days in this life. Because this life is a test, and every single day we learn something new. And we're able to overcome our mistakes and become better versions of ourselves just like that. So therefore, my dear respected brothers in Islam, whenever a calamity strikes, it is always, always better to spend some money in the path of Allah. Give maybe $1, maybe $5, $10, whatever you can, whatever amount you're able to give. Some people have this common misconception that, oh, if I'm going to a fundraising dinner, then I'm supposed to write a check for at least $1,000, or maybe $5,000, or maybe $10,000. The thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not looking for the quantity. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rather, He is looking towards the quality and also towards the sincerity, the ikhlas. That is, this person of mine, is he sincere? I've been to many different fundraising dinners, and there was one fundraising dinner where a brother, he literally just gave $100, but they were all in loose change. $10 bills, $20 bills, $5 bills, and he said, this is all what I have, and he gave it in that dinner. The thing is, the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is that when we go into this constant habit of spending in the path of Allah, then that will actually remove the love of money in our hearts. A very common example that I would like to give is that those people who actually go towards scuba diving, what is the main thing that they have and what they're looking for towards their body? They want to reduce all of the weight. They have a very, very slim suit, and with that they just have only one oxygen tank. That's it. And when they go in the water, they're always trying their best to move away from the boat, and they want to have the less weight as possible. So think about these things, these gadgets that we have, this money, credit cards, all of these things that we're having. This is all adding weight. When we go into the grave, we don't want to take all of that weight. It's because you cannot fit anything in the grave except probably just your body. And so therefore we need to realize and understand, my dear brothers in Islam, that this life is temporary. And whatever we have, no matter how many cars, how many houses, how many different things we have, once the angel of death takes our soul away, all of those assets are gone. And it's just us, our deeds, and then we go into the grave. So therefore, my dear respected brothers in Islam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to basically get into the habit of spending in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a consistent basis. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to be able to gain His pleasure through spending in the path of Allah, and become of those people who will be able to stand under the shade of His. Because another type of people who will be standing under the shade, under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will be those people who actually spend in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very, very consistent manner. Because on the Day of Judgment, as we are all aware, that the sun will be very close to our heads, and the heat will be very extreme. But the only place of shade is only going to be the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dhillu arsh. And so therefore we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of us are able to become of those people, and that we're also able to seek the shafa'ah, the intercession of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the Day of Judgment, and that we're able to go along with him into Jannah al-Firdaus, and to be amongst those of the Nabiyyin, the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, and the Salihin. وَحَسُنَا أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله الأحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وأنعم على حبيب المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداء الدين واجعل هذا البلد آمنا مطمئنا سخاء رخاء وسائر بلاد المسلمين. اللهم لا تدع لنا في مقامنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا كربا إلا نفسته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته، ولا مريضا إلا شفيته، ولا ضالا إلا هديته، ولا مريضا إلا شفيته، ولا ميتا إلا رحمته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة هي لك رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا أعنتنا على قضائها ويسرتها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم يا شافع الأمراض اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم ارحمنا، اللهم ارحم موتانا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اجعل خير أعمالنا أواخرها وخير أيامنا يوم نلقاك، واجعلنا من الفائزين مع الذين لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم، ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. وقم الصلاة إن شاء الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
حقا دائما أبدا لا إله إلا الله. استووا واعتدلوا. Please make the line straight inshallah. The brothers in the back can move up so that we can fill up all the gaps inshallah. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الضالين آمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.